right now, the light heavyweight scene, how do you view it? I mean, it is one frantic division, is it not? You've got Beterbiev there who holds the IBF, WBC titles, due to fight Callum Smith, Bivol in there. I mean, the list is endless. Do you want to end up with one of these huge names?
Yeah, I think worldwide there's some killers there, but there's also killers nationally. We're talking off air. There's some good fighters, and for me, I'd like to get in with any of them because I just want a name at the moment.
Any of them?
Yeah, a name at the moment.
We saw Beterbiev. I mean, my God, Josh.
Sitting here at London Bridge, it's easy to talk what you do when you're in the ring with him. I'm realistic enough to know that it's a difficult challenge, but one that I think when I'm in there, I'm locked in.
You've been a pro now for 7 years, 17 fights in. Do you feel that now is the time to box for this world title? Like, you've had that warm-up fight, right? You've had that and you've got some good rounds under your belt. You happy to go with any of those guys now, or some of the names that we just mentioned? But world titles are obviously the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Spence, the fact is that I've been ranked number one for how long now? So being ranked number one, of course, fighting for the title is what you want.
Yeah.
If I were ranked number 10, number 15, then yeah, I'd say a bit more time. But I've been number one for ages. I'm top 3 in all the governing bodies. So it's very obvious that I'm ready and I want to fight for one.
But does that mean that you've got to be careful on the opponents that you choose, obviously, because you're putting a lot on the line before you get the world title shot? If you choose, like an Anthony Yarde, say, for instance, you're putting all that on the line, aren't you? So you're in danger of losing that world title if you lose that fight, or are you just at the case where you go, listen to anyone?
It's always been on the line. It's always on the line whenever we step in. My last fight on the weekend, everything was on the line. If I lost, you guys would not have had me here. Everything would have been in the bin. So it's always on the line.
Simon definitely wouldn't have had you here, because you know what he's like. But
Josh, we would have you in at any time of the day or night. More specifically, a lot of people this lunchtime asking, and Josh, this isn't territory for you, but why is it falling through, the fight between Fraser Clark and Fabio Wardley? Boxer coming in for a bit of a thumping on that one. Generally, as far as you are concerned, we'll address that shortly before we go at 1 o'clock, incidentally. Many of you asking this question this lunchtime. But many people asking me to ask you. Rob is one of them. Josh, Jim, ask him. Do you have the confidence that Boxer and Ben Shalom will deliver you the big fight?
Absolutely, yeah. If I weren't, I would not have moved. I would have stayed where I was, but I'm very confident that they've got the backings and the people and the power to deliver that. Of course, me doing my bit is very beneficial. As we see, I've got good rankings, so I do think 100% they can deliver it.
I mean, how much say do you have in your own trajectory, if you like, Josh? Can a fighter say to a promoter, I tell you who I want, and I only want is X. Go get him. Do you have the wherewithal to say that?
To an extent. I mean, you can't be ranked number 20 and say you want the champion. But if you've got good rankings, you can say, but have they got a fight already scheduled in? Are the other people already in line? Are you a mandatory? Are you just number one, or are you a mandatory?
Well, you're number one.
Yeah, but the
and
position.
Just won.
But there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of politics involved in that as well. But I understand what Josh is saying there. Yeah, of course, because he's number one and he's got that power, he can turn around and say, "I want him." But reality is, he might be tied up.
There's a difference between being number one and being mandatory.
Yeah,
mandatory means he has to fight you next. Number one means you're number one. But mandatory is the position you want to get into.
I'm just keen to know how you are actually feeling this week, Josh. You came back after a year out. There was a blaze of publicity. You went in and it was underwhelming. Is there an hour of the day that doesn't go by that you think, I need to put this right?
Like I mean, every day, every hour, I'm thinking, wish I got him out of there. But like I say, man, in the long term, doing those rounds would have it's done me good. That I'm also aware of. So there's a balance. So right now I'm just focusing on having a week off, but getting straight into camp and getting a big name in the summer.
Simon, you can see the messages. They're in front of you. They're in front of me. A lot of people saying, Josh, get him in with Anthony Yarde. That's what Jordan in Bournemouth. That would be a proper dust up. There's another one. It's Yarde, only Yarde for Josh. Get him in there with him. So you can feel whether this is what happens in this show, Josh. We talk football all the time. And quite rightly, the listeners are the most important people. And they tell us what they want. This is what they want with you, Yarde.
Yeah, it's no surprise. We did a poll. I think on the weekend, Sky did a poll, and when it came back, the fighter that was chosen that people said they would like to see me in with is Yarde. And again, it was no surprise. So I'm not here again calling him out, calling his name. It's very obvious that I want to fight him. I'm sure he wants to too. It's just whether it happens next or not.
Simon, you like Josh, but you like Yarde too.
I do. I like both of them. I was very proud of. I thought Anthony, the way he dismantled Lyndon Arthur in the second fight was a remarkable win. Just was made up for the poor performance in lockdown. I thought he put on a commendable performance against Beterbiev, but he still lost, and I was quite proud of him. I think this boy here is going to win a world title, but I think he needs to bring the public with him. And at this moment in time, the public are a little bit ambivalent because they need to see a little bit more from him. The Craig Richards win was a good win because Craig came with a decent pedigree, fought Dimitri Bevell, got a lot of credit out of that. I think you put him in with Yarde, but the difficulty for that one is Yarde just come off the back of a defeat. He's with BT, Josh is with Sky. It's going to have to go to a purse bid to make that fight happen, and people are going to get their noses put out of joint. But the bottom line is I think from the public point of view, you have that fight, which I think Josh would win, and I'll say the same thing if Anthony Yarde was sat here, and Anthony Yarde will probably tell me off, but I've got to say what I think. And then I think you start to bring the audience with you, because what you've got is one of the nicest fellas in the world sitting across the table from us, right? But what it also needs is a bit of juice behind it and a bit of energy to be able to back up the sentiments of being a really top fighter, which I don't know about you, Spence. I mean, you might be a little coward now and say something different. No. I think he's going to win a world title.
Come on, Simon. I've always said that. Do you know that? Come on. You can't do that. I'm sitting quite close as well.
You said
but
IBO.
I've always said that.
Title.
But no, I think actually that for me it was a below par performance against Stepien. I think that, I've seen you much better. I felt at times you looked quite sluggish, a little bit ponderous. And I think that fight made it even more interesting now, the Yarde fight, because had he gone out there and blown Stepien away, they go, right, world title fights, they'd be focusing on that. I think that actually for the public fancy that fight even more now, because Yarde obviously coming off that defeat, and they were going, well, that's a great fight, you and Yarde, and that's it'd be like a final eliminator really for wherever you go. I mean, that's the way that I see it.
But it's a difficult one, because ultimately, how long do you think, Josh, it's difficult for you to answer, these belts with Bivol and Beterbiev are a little bit tied up. Yeah. And the appetite may well be for those two guys to meet at some point before other people start getting shots. And when we talk about number one and mandatories, so in the meantime, you need to be looking good, don't you? And need to be building this train behind you.
And the mistake I don't want to do, guys, is to not be active because I'm waiting for someone.
Sure. Yeah.
So the balance is
the right kind of active.
The right kind of active. That's really what the question is. I want to box again August, September. The question is who, what type of fight is it going to be? That's, yes, you're going to win, you're going to keep your rankings. It's a name that's well known and still keep you relevant in line for the title shot.
Yeah.
So
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.